Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi and Firepower back with popular demand, the second show where we're going to talk about what's happening in Ukraine and the use of firepower in Ukraine. Not much about the ground battle, but let's analyze firepower to begin with. As you see, I have with me Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar. Sir, thank you for putting together this talk about the Russia-Ukraine war and the use of firepower. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, Radhi. And as I said earlier, we need to understand Ukraine firepower more because there's very lot of lessons we can draw and a lot of similarities the way Ukraine has employed, Russia and Ukraine have employed firepower to what we did in Kargil. With a lot of course, there are a lot of differences, but I mean, we have to put everything in context. So I just thought we should have this talk. Let's start.
So basically, overall, sir, as a person who's dealt with this kind of firepower all your life, when you look at what's happening in the war from both the sides, as an overall perspective, what do you see has been the use of firepower? Because a lot of people actually call this an artillery war itself. So,
Yeah, every day, if you when you analyze that utility or utilization or employment of firepower, one thing comes out that it is being used for political purposes, right? And it is being used in a big way. In a war which is surprisingly been shot on maneuver, shot on ground attack, on conventional form of warfare, okay, the accepted form of warfare, uh, air power has ruled. Firepower has ruled, and again, air power has been underutilized. So the dominant mode of fighting between both the sides have been firepower, basically artillery. Uh, the interesting part is uh, when the when Russia had the weight of firepower on its side, it made a lot of advances. When Ukraine got hold of good firepower, it made advances. So anyone who's had uh, firepower more or used it intelligently has made headway. It's a different thing. The whole war is in some kind of a stalemated situation with no
siege.
political end game. No political end game or an exit plan. Right? People have gone into this war without an exit plan. The way I look at it, uh,
Both the sides.
both the sides. So, and this was in the making for a long time to come. Okay. So to that extent, I don't know how much we will get out of this war politically. It is on, but as far as firepower is concerned, I think there are a lot of lessons,
Hmm.
and especially in our context. Because this is the first time firepower is used in the manner it has been used, at the extent and scale at which it has been used. And this is modern firepower. And analyzing Russian firepower, the way it has been employed is very important because that's the way China is going to do it. Okay. So let's dive.
Let's go, sir. You want to go through
Yeah,
your.
we'll go through the presentation quickly, right?
Yes, sir.
And then
Then
we
we'll
can
get into
discuss.
the.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
Uh,
sorry. Sorry, just give me a
yeah,
second,
no,
sir.
no problem.
There we go.
Yeah, we're going to see the employment of artillery in Ukraine. Basically, I'm now focusing on artillery. Okay. Oh, you know, till now it was understood that God fights on the side with big guns. Hereafter, God will fight on the side with big guns, rockets, and missiles with longer ranges. Artillery is no more about guns. Okay, you need greater range. The entire thing is important. These are some of the quotes which I got. Forbes says Ukraine's artillery might be winning the war with Russia. Ukraine's new heavy artillery will cause Russia a pain of world. Washington Post carried there in hail of Russian artillery test Ukraine morale. Artillery is playing a vital role in Ukraine, right? One village at a time, the grinding artillery war in Ukraine. These are what the headlines which I picked off major, medias. Now, this is something which I have written. Terrain, ground, weather, and all other factors might deter, inhibit, or preclude employment of air, infantry, and armor. But very little deters artillery. The importance of artillery has been reinforced manifold in the Ukraine war. The terrain, interestingly, the terrain conditions during the Kargil war in the Himalayas were always almost similar to the Rasputita conditions in Ukraine. It
My,
inhibited cross-country movement. So perforce artillery had to come into play. Okay, I'll skip this. We'll not get into this. Right. The view is the war will be analyzed minutely by the Chinese. They will go into details the way Russia and Ukraine have employed artillery, amongst other things. It will do well for us to remember that China also great lays emphasis on firepower and employment of rockets and missiles. It also lays emphasis on fighting wars under conditions of informatization using precision strike capabilities to paralyze enemy operational systems. And this is as part of their destruction warfare.
what we see today.
Okay. There's also another fact: the days of artillery providing fire support to infantry and mechanized forces are over. Artillery, 2 years back, if you remember, General Rawat said, Air Force is a supportive arm. And it's not even far from Air Force. Even artillery is no more a supporting arm. The Kargil conflict had brought home to everyone the value of destruction and interdiction. These two major tasks which came forth. But for the firepower of gunners, the whole conflict would have ended in a national disaster. Right? In future, this role will be enlarged. Role of artillery. Without the enhanced range, lethality, and accuracy and strategic mobility now available with gunners, China will, or which is our main adversary, will have a walkover. That let's not have any doubt about it. Pakistan, the smaller foe, will continue to believe it can take us on. Whether it is against Pakistan or China, India's new look firepower will dominate the battlefield, provided we are able to put it together. The elements of the new look firepower are partly in place. Not fully, but partly. Okay. Against Pakistan, it will be an overwhelming and punishing force. Against China, it will be a deterring force. At one stage,
Difference.
it will be a deterring force, but at another stage, it's going to be the major force which will actually break China's, offensives. In mountains and altitudes, the main combat arms will be infantry and artillery. There are no other combat arm in mountains of value. Even armor will be reduced to mobile fire pillboxes. There's no mechanized columns will not move the way they move in deserts. Further, the main source of firepower in mountains is artillery, since Air Force might not be as effective. It could be due to vagaries of weather and terrain conditions, or you might not be able to use Air Force the way you want it to. Okay. Now, there is another interesting thing. The increasing density and lethality of air defense systems like the S-400, especially in the Sino-Indian context, will limit the role and effectiveness of air power. If you can't use air power, the only other alternative for firepower is artillery. Okay, I've also written the neo-modern role of firepower is strategic in nature. Artillery is now an instrument of conventional deterrence. This is something which we in India have to understand. In India, this factor is not even discussed. They don't even think. We don't even think this way, right? But if you see the Ukraine war, the deterrent role of artillery is increasing constantly. This subtle shift needs to be understood. Nuclear and conventional deterrence theories, which are basically scripted largely in the West, they'll not work in our context, especially where we are in an eyeball to eyeball situation.
True.
So we need suitably tailored conventional deterrence. Now, the thing with conventional deterrence, it is discriminatory. It can be calibrated, and the resultant damage is politically more acceptable than a nuclear holocaust. So, if you don't want to go into the nuclear war, the other thing is this, because you can the amount of damage it can cause, while it is extensive at one level, it is telling at one level. At the other level, it isn't politically inhibitive. Okay, okay. General deterrence can be put in place before a crisis occurs. If you have adequate artillery, it serves as a deterrence of its own. That can be put through long range vectors, which will be effective over the long term. That's why I said artillery is no more guns. It is rockets, missiles, long range artillery. Okay, and guided artillery. When a crisis is imminent or occurs, firepower is a potent tool of immediate deterrence. Straight away. Influence operations are a convenient medium to project the deterrence value of political thinking. That's what China is doing when it shows all its videos of firing and all that. They tell you, look, we have all this. So it deters you, it influences you. Now, all this is feasible because of increased ranges, warhead lethality, and precision of conventional firepower. So if you can tell the other guy that we have all this, he will think 10 times before doing anything.
Hmm.
It applies to China also. Okay. Additionally, conventional deterrence can be focused on counterforce targets with minimal counter value effect. You can focus, you don't have to affect the public at large. Most
Pinpoint.
importantly, it can be delivered at standoff through multiple modes. The writings coming from China suggest that they want to go into non-contact warfare more, punitive warfare. How do you dismantle it? You don't dismantle punitive warfare by infantry or mech forces or non-contact type. You have to do it non-contact.
Counterfire.
Yeah. Conventional deterrence is far more flexible in application. That is why the long range precision fires program is a priority in the US Army. And that is why China places so much thing on precision fire. Now, what did we see in Ukraine? We saw seamless employment of nuclear and conventional power as a destructive and in a deterrent role simultaneously and interchangeably. So the nuclear threat was put in place where the firepower was being executed.
Hmm.
Okay, you saw hypersonic guided missiles, rockets, and guns, but you also saw this long periods of static battlefields. But long range firepower opened up the battlefield completely. It
Again.
generated strategic maneuver. It artillery overcame terrain fiction. Now it's a deep battle of a different kind, which we have to really now start thinking of. Now, a word about terrain. I mean, without going into all this, let me explain to you the terrain in Ukraine is flat. But during Sputita conditions, you can't move out. So, employment of armor, infantry, and all is restricted to roads and tracks. Okay, this will be the similar condition in Himalayas. You can't get off. So, in such conditions, you can only use firepower. Okay, if you see the last three bullets, move of infantry is severely limited due to barren high altitude terrain in Himalayas. Now, employment of air is restricted by fickle Himalayan weather and political issues and effective air defenses of China. China will have air defenses because it's concentrating more on air defenses for the simple reason it knows our air force is potent. So, battles will be resultantly fought largely by infantry and artillery. Okay, it will be the battle for defining and winning factor, artillery. Okay. Now, if you see in Ukraine, the firepower and political objectives were matched. You have a look at the slide overall. Ukraine was not to be part of NATO. That was the Russian name. So they used nuclear threat to keep NATO out. They used new hypersonic missiles, right? and Ukraine capitulated to this demand very fast. But now it's being recognized back. In the normal course of events, a lot of traditional support role of artillery is being played out. But the last one is important: demilitarization of Ukraine. Right, air and missile strikes were carried out on Ukraine bases in the west to cut off military aid. Ukraine was systematically destroyed. The war waging capability was destroyed. They destroyed the Ukrainian defense industry and firepower and military elements. Now they have gone into destroying infrastructure, like
Civilian.
yeah, civilian infrastructure. Uh, they've also even threatened the nuclear plants. They're targeting the power grids. All these things are on. Okay. And firepower has been used innovatively also in firepower ambushes and track and kill operations and spoiling attacks by both sides. More by the Ukrainian forces. Okay, so okay, now the Ukraine, the what shall I say? Russians have been using the artillery to punch holes in enemy defenses and to enable and generate movement. But Ukrainians have copied it in the recently in their counteroffensives and use the same thing. Conversely, firepower has been used to plug holes, fix and restrict maneuver by enemy. Okay, if there is firepower, you can't go there. But it has demanded a heavy sensor to shooter integration. Right, sizable fleets of drones have been used. Right, drones and firepower have been used to hit Ukrainian places, their artillery and all that. The same tactics Ukraine has used against Russia of late. The artillery has been used to destroy roads, buildings, infrastructure, basically to deny defensive capability. Firepower has been used to fix the enemy and isolate it, to either promote own move and deny space, or make your own movement and cut off reinforcements. And very specially, Ukraine has used the M777s in spoiling attack mode. Just when the Russians were getting into attack, they've been subjected to artillery fire from these mobile M777s, and they've dislocated Russian attacks. Now, word about the HIMARS rocket system, which has been used by Ukraine, and this needs a little this thing. They've used the rockets which have the 80-kilometer range. It can fire 6 guided missiles, this one. And it's very accurate when fired against fixed targets, and especially when you have coordinates. Okay. Now, they have used it for interdiction. They've used it for isolation. They've used it for destruction. They've used it for degradation, and they used it for denial. Whole lot of tasks this HIMARS has used. Okay. Now, it's been used artillery as a surprise factor is come up. If you see the leftmost, the most important differentiating aspect of employment of artillery between Ukraine and Kargil is surprise. Okay, if you look at the top, what I have written, everyone was surprised that Russia did not use artillery offensively in the initial phases of the Ukrainian war. If they had done that, they might have won the day then. They didn't use it overwhelmingly. It was a utter lack of surprise.
Yeah.
Now, overwhelming use of artillery in its Donbass offensive was expected as inevitable. So again, they didn't surprise. There's no surprise. In Kargil, Pakistan did not even imagine that artillery could be deployed at such scale and much less used the way it was in high altitudes. India's employment of mass artillery in a destructive role, and especially the destruction wreaked by the Bofors, was a strategic and tactical surprise for the Pakistanis. It swept them away completely. So artillery lends itself to a lot of surprise. Okay. Against China, one needs to be smart. This is my view. You need to move. You what I've written here. Initially in uh, Kargil, the Pakistanis used artillery quite imaginatively. The Pakistanis gained renown when their artillery was used imaginatively, and it was the prime on the battlefield. They achieved infamy when they ran short of firepower. They didn't have firepower and they got stuck. We gained infamy initially when artillery was inadequate and relegated to a sideshow. It was only when artillery was restored to its prime importance in the battlefield that India could gain renown. Okay. Now, there are a lot of things you have to do. You have to move from the idea of disintegration to integrated use of firepower, which includes sensors and shooters, including special forces integration. It includes integration of air and ground elements. You need to use firepower as a deterrent, which I've been talking all around. And you need to develop deep battle concepts. You need to have control and interdiction and communications in sync. You have to overcome the Himalayan terrain by long range vectors. China is doing it. Chinese writing suggests so. Okay. The nuclear environment sets conflict thresholds. You can't go beyond a threshold of conflict. And that is where artillery comes. In that threshold of conflict, artillery is the prime. Then you have
Hmm.
to use fire ambushes, piling attacks, track and destroy operations. These all pay very handsome dividends in Tibetan terrain. And we have to revisit the concept of firepower being a support system. I mean, that is an old story.
Concept.
How do we move towards a smart artillery? You need to analyze PLA artillery. You need to analyze terrain, right? What is the existing terrain now, and what will be the future terrain in Tibet as infrastructure improves and communications come up? You need to appreciate deployment areas. You need to carry out surveillance and monitor deployment of ammunition dumps, hides, deployment areas, PPs, routes. All these you have to do. You have to develop extensive target folders. You have to make surveillance with our own vectors. You have to target PLA artillery. You have to deny space to PLA artillery. You have to carry out track and kill operations. I mean, this is something new for us. We
Hmm.
must we must design firepower ambushes, because look, why am I talking all this? Because PLA, if it has to come and attack India, or China has to attack India, it has to come get large number of forces into our area, into difficult terrain, into predictable areas. Okay, you have to evolve into transborder uh, special forces observation posts to direct enemy artillery fire in depth. You need to have a concept of mobile artillery or roving artillery, which can is task specific, go fire and get back. You had to have a great concept of ammunition management. The moment you do that, you are in a smart zone. Okay, you need to do a lot of study, and this is what I keep telling. You have to develop artillery intelligence. You need to have applied gunnery, how to make artillery more effective. How do you how do you enhance the role of artillery in battle? You need to study in detail, because it's nice for me to you and I to talk of deterrence and disruption and support. How do you do it? How do you control artillery fire? How do you carry out the depth battle? How do you promote maneuver? Actually, what is the value of artillery in the overall firepower paradigm? What is the balance between air force and artillery? What happens if the air force is not there? How do you carry out special forces ops in depth? These are some things which you have to study in detail and we have to apply in detail.
Hmm.
Okay. You need to do battle space analysis. You need to go into georeferencing and AI. Okay. Especially as far as enemy artillery concerned. PLA boasts of its artillery. So you need to know where it's going to deploy, where it's going to hide, where are the routes, what is its concentration, what is the time and space relationship, what kind of artillery will appear where. You need to do flash and sound analysis to detect where it is. You need to know where their ammunition dumps are. Like I said, track and kill. All these things need analysis. Where you want to do track and kill, where you want to design your ambushes, and how you want to carry out your spoiling attacks and SF ops. All part of battle space analysis. Because battle is going to take place in a given space. If you analyze this, you neutralize the artillery. Then, of course, you need to exploit technology. You have Pinakas. You have Mark 1 Pinaka gave you 37 kilometers. Mark 2 gives you 80 kilometers. You need to look at a Mark 3 with a ramjet, which takes you to 250 kilometers. And you need to look at a hypersonic scramjet, which gives you about 150 odd kilometers. Okay, that will be the start point. The later scramjets can go farther, right? Yeah. Now I'm open. I've finished my presentation. You can take it off. We can discuss what you want.
Interesting presentation, sir. Although a lot of people have started putting in questions, guys, I'm just going to take 5 minutes from sir to ask one question that I have, and then I'm going to put up a lot of questions. Good evening to all the people that have wished us good evening. There are a lot of people who come out and say good evening, Saab, General Saab and Adi. So
That's right.
it's a blanket good evening to everybody.
Yeah, good.
But sir, coming back to this discussion now, the element of firepower, and as a matter of fact, the employment of firepower, you've talked about the tactical aspect of it and the strategic aspect of it. I want you to also cover a little bit on the psychological aspect of it, sir.
Oh,
uh,
look, the psychological aspect is huge. Then,
if I may, sir, if you don't mind, they say that you can't ever run away from an artillery fire.
yeah, yeah.
So
You
that's
if
what.
you read what Pakistanis have written about every Pakistani writer has said, look, what defeated us was the firepower of the Bofors and the psychological effect of the grad. Just imagine if a battery of grads, which is 240 shells coming on you, the psychological effect at night is huge. Okay, so there and plus, you have to realize one fundamental thing, which which many of us forget often. In battle, one person dead is not a great achievement in terms of effect. One person injured has got more effect because to evacuate that fellow, you need four more people.
Hmm.
Okay, and he's screaming and he's making others see what his suffering is going through. That has more psychological effect. It's not important to kill an enemy always to win a battle. It's more important to injure an enemy. And the psychological effect of injuring that enemy is more. Okay. So these are the things which are important, which artillery achieves very easily. And if you can use this intelligently, you will get out of proportion dependence. Okay, but if you use it as a firepower, fire support, infantry जा रहा है उसको cover करना fire, which we've been doing from Second World War, बस वो ऐसे ही रह जाएंगे. That's important, but that artillery has gone far past that.
So, because the videos that you see of these foreign mercenaries hiding out in these bunkers when Russian artillery is going over them, when you watch that video itself, it creeps you out because you know the kind of sound and the kind of
Yeah, yeah.
effect that's happening. Uh, do you
Accurate
know?
artillery fire, fire demoralizes everyone. It puts the scare into everyone. Okay, that is something which it breaks fighting spirit. Well, one has to be under artillery fire to understand what I'm talking, or see artillery fire at close
Hear the
quarters to understand the effect. I mean, those of us who are of the old type, we used to get artillery fire pretty close, and the effect is devastating. We used to, we used to train to control artillery fire close. Uh, okay, so that's pretty unnerving, even for a guy who used to control. I remember during battle inoculation exercises, I used
Are
at
you
times
trying to tell me you make the guy fire on yourself or close to
as
yourself?
close as possible. When you do battle inoculation, you put your own troops under shelters and all that, and get the fire close to you. Of course, you cater for safety distances, everything, all that, but but even then, it is you understand the violence of artillery. Yeah.
because this just the sound of it, and
Yeah.
the whole ground
No,
going.
no. If it is close, you feel it also. You feel the shake.
Apart from that, sir, the psychological effects, the civilian psychological effects of these damn cruise missiles is going on top. We've
Yeah,
seen
that's
multiple videos.
something that is frightening actually for people.
Yeah,
It's frightening.
it
That's
breaks
what
the will
China.
of the mass.
That's what China did. China fired all their missiles around the Taiwan and showed it to everyone as if Actually, if you analyze those videos, you will see that there are only 4 or 5 missiles fired totally by China. 11 missiles, but it
11, 13
11,
missiles, 13,
mhm,
11.
11
13.
whatever, 13 or 11. Jitna bhi ho, that's nothing. That many get fired in a day in a battle. I mean, half a day in a battle. Okay, so actual battle you'll find more, and that was just shooting across the bow. As far as China was doing, they made a song and dance out of it. So the psychological effect on every one of us is, oh, they've done something great and they're going to do something. All that is to be seen, right? So yeah,
Guys, let's get into the questions. And before I do, request you all to please hit the like button, and please do comment on these videos. Both these things help the algorithm of YouTube to kind of promote these videos. Is very critical that more people reach it. The last video is still giving me very, very heavy views. These are all timeless videos because we're not discussing a tactical situation. We're looking at you know in a larger perspective. So please do hit the like button, check your subscriptions, check the bell icons if you guys want the notifications to come in. If you can, please do help out the Dev Talks efforts by, you can become a member. You can also just send us a sticker or donate directly through the UPI. Check out Sir's website, and as it mentions here, gunnershot.com, and mine, of course, which is the devtalks.com.
hey,
Sir,
incidentally,
let's get it.
this
Sir,
what presentation I've given you is there in my website in an article form also. If they go to the Firepower series, you'll find them all there. Yeah. There's an article I think which is called "Towards Smart Artillery." You can read it.
so there you go. And let's get into the first question of the evening. He says, there are reports of Russia using almost 4 to 5 lakh artillery shells a day. I mean, that's some seriously scary firepower.
No, I don't
Requires
think.
excellent logistics, even close to that.
No, no, no. It's firstly, I don't think they fired 4 to 5 lakhs. Okay, they fired quite a bit, but I don't think it's 4 to 5 lakhs, right? Again, I've done this calculation somewhere. I don't remember where. Um, yeah, on 26th July, I put out an article where I've actually given the number of rounds which they have fired and how many it means, how many guns it means, and all that. It is on, it's an article where I've compared the Ukrainian artillery and Kargil, how many rounds were fired, and all that. A lot of similarity, right? This is an article again in Gunner Shot. You'll find 26 July ka hai. If you go, you'll get the thing, and it is not something which is not manageable. The number of shells might be more. Ultimately, it depends on from how many guns they are fired and where all these guns have been fired from. If you fired across the whole front, utna to ho jayega. Okay, so let's not overplay this or overthink of this. Yeah.
Mhm. He's, I think, also asking a question about logistics, sir, in terms of getting the shells to the guns.
Yeah, that's why ammunition management for artillery is one of the most critical. In fact, the major part of war, operational logistics, 80% of operational logistics is artillery. If you can get the artillery ammunition in place, it occupies space. You need a lot of
Agree.
carrying power. You need lot of road space management. You need a lot of operational intelligence to see where it goes. You need protection. A whole lot of things.
And it's heavy, sir.
I remember, yeah, it is heavy. I mean, good gunners don't bother about it. Okay, uh, heavy is it's okay, part of the deal, right? But I remember during the Kargil ops, we were in a different sector. I was not part of the actual Kargil thing. We were slightly to the south. My main worry was ammunition. I need to keep going keep the ammunition going. If you don't have ammunition, you'll run dry, and there's no point. After that, the gun is just bare metal. You can have cobwebs on it. So ammunition management is important, and a whole lot of effort and focus is on that. It's not as if we don't know. We are very good at it, incidentally. Yeah.
Let's go to the second question. And I think we were artillery deficient in 1962. I read it in the Henderson Brooks report.
I think we were deficient of many things in 1962, right? We were we were deficient of planning also. It was an ill-planned war. I don't think we should go back into that. And there's no lesson which you can get out of that except to know that a nation has to fight. It's just not artillery or infantry or an army or an air force which has to fight. It's a nation which has to fight. We didn't fight as a nation. Yeah,
That's a heavy lesson, sir.
yeah, yeah,
If I- yeah,
yeah.
of
We have
course.
paid. Look,
We
let's
paid
be.
dearly for it.
We have paid dearly for it. It's now 60 years since then. And yeah.
Is ordnance going to play a spoil sport as usual? Need to set a house right. Maybe
No, no.
military intelligence
Look.
needs to be
We need.
proactive. Is all I'm
We
worry.
have we have most of these things in place. I have no doubt about it. The ordnance score is very good. They've done a fantastic job over the years in handling ammunition. Uh, Military intelligence at core level, at battlefield level is good. Our failures have been at higher level. Okay, once you join battle, our intelligence has been good. So let's not underrate ourselves. Remember, Kargil was how many days? 15, 20 days war, 30 days war, from start to finish. This war has gone on for 9 months in Ukraine. So much artillery has been used, X, Y, Z, and it has not come to any conclusion. Remember that. We are the only army. In 14 days, we created a nation. In about 30 days, we threw people out of high altitude and brought that whole story to a conclusion. Just think of the mental fracture which Pakistan has suffered after Kargil war. Okay, so we've been very successful. We have to have that strategic confidence in ourselves that India's Indian Army and Air Force and Navy are very, very tough customers. Let's have that confidence. Let's not depreciate ourselves कि ये नहीं करता काम वो नहीं करता वो तो चूं चूं करते रहो. Battles are not won, and battles have been won by us. We are one of the proud nations. Except 62, we have won all battles. आगे बोलो.
सर कारगिल पे आगे तो बोल रहा हूँ मैं बट कारगिल पे एक we have to do a separate this thing to understand Kargil a little further
Yeah, we'll do that.
because
I have no problem.
the use of firepower and the understanding of Indian firepower would come
Yeah.
to some sort of a conclusion with the audience, I think, because that's
Yeah,
something
we'll
that a
do
lot
that.
of people are.
We'll do that. We'll do that. As far as Kargil is concerned, maybe a week, 10 days down the line, we'll
Yeah.
have a presentation on how Kargil, how, I'll put it this way, how we won the war in Kargil by using artillery the way we did, one, and then say how can we use it against China when the time comes. We have to draw lessons. We have to go forward, just not keep looking over our
Yeah, of course.
shoulder.
It has to.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah. And then, of course, we will get into rockets and this and that a little later. But
No,
I guess
that's part of our rockets and all are part of that story. What we did in Kargil should tell us what we should do against China in a different manner. That's the whole
ठीक है
story.
सर.
Yeah.
Sir, can you explain Zone 7 fire in simple terms?
Look, Zone 7 is very simple. Zone fire is extreme ranges. When you fire, you have zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the amount of charge bags which you put. Charge which you put to. If you fire it from zone 1, you get least range. When you fire zone 7, you get max range. if that gun system has the ability to go to zone 7, which attacks has, so you get more range. That's about all. There's nothing very great.
Technical about it. Right. I'm sure this question you will enjoy in particular, sir. So there's a report that IIT Madras is making a ramjet powered artillery shell with a range of 80 to 100 kilometers. What is the status of this
Yeah,
project?
we're doing very well. We're progressing very well, and we are on track. I won't say more than that.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, no, no. Be rest assured that India will be a pioneer in ramjet propulsion for artillery.
And guys, the day Sir can speak, I'm telling you, Dev Talks will be the first one to grab Sir and make sure that he talks about
Yeah, yeah,
it. Does
yeah.
drone make vulnerable? Are drones vulnerable? Do drones make artillery positions
No,
vulnerable?
look again. The thing with drones is they're a fixed number. They'll be even in drones are very useful. Like aircraft, they're fixed number. You can only take on a certain number of targets. If you want to use drones to, break, um, artillery, it has of no value. Knocking off one gun or two guns, artillery guns, has got no value because other guns will fire. Right? How many guns will you destroy? Okay, you can't destroy. Look, the only thing which is where artillery is vulnerable to is artillery.
Counter battery.
बस और कोई नहीं है. Nothing else, and air. Okay. Look,
And
in battle, be rest assured, and we have to expect it also. It's a two-sided affair. If you think you're going to have effect on the other man, he will also have effect on you. Haven't we lost people in Kargil? We lost. Didn't we overcome that and hit back the enemy to make him lose overall? We did. So some drones will come and maybe hit a odd gun or hit an odd tank and all that, but they'll not make the difference the way things are being played out. You got a new tool on the battlefield called the drone. Use it intelligently. Make the difference. But it is the drone is not the difference. The drone can make a difference, and the difference is firepower.
the
Okay.
interesting thing is that currently it's the new flavor of the season, which is feeling like it's unbeatable, and that's how every
वो
probably
नया मुल्ला है
technology
बस दैट्स
exchange
अबाउट देख
uh,
ड्रोन इज अ नया मुल्ला ही उसका गीत और उसका संगीत अच्छा होगा सुन लो बट द इट विल नॉट विन यू द वॉर artillery will win you the war artillery with drones will definitely make a huge affair okay without with long range artillery especially without drones are blind the firepower you can carry on a drone is limited 1 or 2 rounds or 3 rounds that's it but what you can carry on what you can use a drone to do deep
fire
long range
control.
surveillance and observation in depth and guide artillery on is huge that's why I said sensor shooter relationship integration if you do that you're on a pig's back yeah
So recently published article by General M.M. Naravane has mentioned World War One French battle had created tanks as complement to artillery, but modern war is all of drones, AI. Opinions, drones over RT. So sir is, I
look
think, answered that question.
I have
So
not read General Naravne's article but let me tell you AI will not succeed in battle it's got huge limitations okay I everyone talks of AI uh, I don't see when I speak to software professionals and professionals in IT and all that. AI has got limited value. Okay, it has value. I'm not saying, but it will not make a difference. Drones per se will not make a difference. Drones with artillery will make the difference. There's no other choice. If Ukraine has taught you anything, that battlefield remains violent. And unless that violence is unleashed, you can't win a war by cyber attacks and AI. As far as you don't kill that guy or injure that guy or capture ground, you can do nothing. And the only way you can do that is by firepower. And that it's again not only by firepower, you need firepower backed by good infantry, good mech forces. It's a combined arms battle. No one system will win the war for you. Okay. Again, if I've given you the impression that the firepower alone will win the battle, just forget it. It will not happen. Firepower will be the dominant factor of victory. On that, there's no doubt. But will it be the only factor of victory? No. It is a combined arms battle.
Indeed.
Last time I showed this. 5 fingers. You need all 5 fingers. None of the fingers are equal to each other. But without these 5 unequal fingers, you can't make a fist. Okay. So if you need a battle fist, you need armor, you need infantry, you need artillery, you need drones, you need intelligence, you need air power, all kinds. The works. If you don't have anything, and all these have to be in balance. If they're not in balance, you are out of the equation. Most importantly, we have to understand this. Look, let me also put it, let me be a little controversial. I don't agree with General Naravne and his predecessor, both. Because all these people are talking diverged drones from artillery. Artillery had the entire lot of UAVs in Indian Army with artillery. They went and gave it to aviation.
Aviation.
I think it's a retrograde step. So I'll question him someday, and I'll question him in public. In fact, in my way of looking at it, if the way drones are being used and the way firepower is being used, we'll be idiots not to, get them back together. I have no doubt about it. And war has no relationships. There's no rank. You need brains. Fundamental logic tells you if you have artillery which can fire over 80 to 90 kilometers, someone has to be there at the target and to see whether the round is falling or not. It doesn't go on its own. You have to acquire the target. You have to fire on the target. Then you have to see whether the target is destroyed or not. If that target is destroyed, you have to search for the next target. They the uh, target acquisition, direction fire, uh, post strike damage assessments. These are continuous. It continuously goes on. So if you don't have drones and artillery mated as sensors and shooters, one has to sense and the other has to shoot. Your system is useless. And these two chiefs, General Bipin Rawat, led General Bipin Rawat, uh, and General Naramne after him, both have done nothing. They're not. They, in fact, one created this problem of division, other continued, and the present chief is also continuing with it. So, what are we talking of?
When will 80 AGS be inducted, sir? Why army takes so long for testing?
Look, you have to understand that the development and deployment of any weapon system takes long. The attacks got off the drawing board only in 2012. It's only 10 years. The gun is not stable as it. It has to be tested. This is the first major gun which we are going to produce, designed and developed in India. If you think in 10 years you will come out with a gun 152 caliber, 50, 155 mm caliber, 52 caliber long barrel, you are out of equation that you think you can do it in 4-5 years just because you got a Atmanirbhar program. Everything takes time. A baby takes 9 months to be produced. So that gun will take that much time to be, its own time to be produced.
Sir, can we manipulate the enemy by feeding wrong data to them? Why Russians are not doing it?
Why Russians are not doing it, you have to ask them. I think the Russians are fighting this battle, have fought this entire campaign. You know,
Sterilely.
uh, they have not used their strengths. They have not used this thing. There seems to be no great
Political
equation. Yeah.
interference and
So so I don't think so. And feeding wrong data to enemies is a normal routine matter. You must do it always. Camouflage, concealment, propaganda, all this. And the Chinese doing it.
yeah,
The
absolutely.
Chinese, everyone in the world believes that Chinese are 20 feet tall and they have a huge military. वो कुछ नहीं है यार. वो तो साला छुपाते हैं. वो गलवान के बाद तो उन्होंने अपना कैजुअलिटीज भी छुपा लिया. सब कुछ छुपाते हैं, है ना? So leave it at that. Yeah.
So I was going through Oryx report on TB2 kills, and I can see it has struck more T-72 tanks and Russian MLRS systems, etc. How to ensure that artillery is safe from sneaky drone
Yeah,
attacks?
Oryx and all, I don't go by, and I don't believe it. See, some of these reports which are coming out are motivated to sell a particular item and commercial
Narrative.
purpose, narrative. So we leave it at that. Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting question. What is the utility of missile forces in a long protracted war? Don't we eventually run out of them?
Look, you'll make them. The use of missile forces is how you employ them. Do you want to employ them in a deterrent manner? Do you want to employ them for destruction? You want to employ it for interdiction? You have to have philosophy, employment philosophy for missile forces, which we don't have. Let's be very frank. India doesn't have it. Okay. Again, the armed forces are sleeping over this. Okay. So if you don't have a employment philosophy, you will not employ it well. But as far as how many missiles do we have, we can only have that many missiles because you must remember, if you have too many missiles, they'll have to stay over the longer period. So it's better to be short of missiles, have a limited number, and have the
Then
capability to produce more, which will sustain you longer rather than having a huge lot, which will go out of equation in 5-10 years because every missile has a shelf life and every missile is costly.
same questions. Do we have the capacity or the industrial
Yeah, yeah,
production?
yeah.
So
We have.
please continue.
We have adequate. We have jumpstart capacities, everything that I can tell you with this thing. And also remember, battles are not fought across the entire strength, front at fewer pitch throughout. There will be places where intense battle will be carried out. There will be lulls in battle. There will be places where it will go into stalemate situation. Aren't we seeing it in Ukraine? So the whole thing comes to management of ammunition. Your capability to produce ammunition is also part of it. But it's only a part of it. The major part of it is your ability to manage ammunition, shift it from one theater to the other, shift it from one battlefield to the other. Ammunition management, a smart ammunition management gives you a lot of value. Yeah.
Indeed, sir. This is an interesting question. Comes out. PLA is PLA-16 MLRS, which has a maximum range of 300, whereas the Pinaka and Smerch Grad only have ranges of 90 kilometers. In war scenario, isn't artillery with longer range a significant advantage?
I agree, but you must understand that PHL-16 MLRS, which has a maximum range of 300 kilometers, is only limited. One type of rocket has that kind of range, not all. Okay, whereas in our case, all of our that ammunition has 18 90 kilometers range. Plus, we have BrahMos, which goes further. So we are in balance. Okay, and you also have to understand that what China is using these long range vectors for is for to offset the shortage of their air power. Again, when you look at firepower, you don't compare
Yeah,
apples
apple
to
to apple.
apples and be happy. You have to compare apples and oranges of yours with theirs. So we are okay.
I think you gave an example of Iran last time where you said
Yeah.
that Iran
Iran doesn't
has
have, yeah, Iran has only missiles. They have no air force. So why is their missile power more? Because they don't have an air force.
missile
Hardly
and
any air
drone.
force. Yeah. So they've gone that. So it's a philosophy, right? Are we doing it? That's why I said you need to have something of 250 to 300 kilometers. The Pinaka has the capability of going up to 250 kilometers to 300 kilometers if you use a ramjet engine. Okay, if you use a ramjet, there is also a thought process in this country where they say no, we'll make another missile system with a 300-kilometer range. That's the most stupid thing you can do. You must understand that the Himalayan terrain is difficult, and if you have another new system, firstly it's a new system. It will take a whole lot of time to be inducted. Plus, if you have a heavier system which can fire up to 300 kilometers, it's a heavier system which can't move in Himalayas, and space in Himalayas is limited. So is it, we have to think, is it better to have on an existing platform have a uh, another rocket with an extended range, that flexibility, or you want to put another new system in completely?
Mm.
It's fundamental, isn't it? It's more cost effective to extend and modify one missile system with extended range with new technology. And that is what my thing is, and that's what I've recommended to people. Let's go in for the Pinaka is a very potent weapon system. Let me tell you this. Okay. And let's go in for a Pinaka with a longer range rather than inducting a new weapon system. And don't
Mark
worry
3,
about
Mark.
and don't worry about the Chinese. See, the way your questions are coming indicates to me that their influence ops is on us. That he has got range of 300 kilometers, I don't have range of 300. Don't worry about it. Okay. That's why I said track and kill, ambushes, battle space management. See, there are jod. हर एक का जोड़ है. If he has to exploit the 300 kilometers of range, he has to come close. He has to come within this 80, 90 kilometers which you have. Hit him, ambush him.
Only he'll be hitting your depth.
Yeah. Okay. By देखो, battles are won between this दिमाग दिमाग लगाओ, बैटल जीत. देखो तालिबान को, देखो यार, इनके पास कुछ नहीं था. क्या है तालिबान के पास? एक अमेरिकन आर्मी को
चप्पल
धकेल
एंड
दिया.
AK-47 सर,
हाँ,
चप्पल एंड AK-47
वो उसके साथ अमेरिकन आर्मी को घुमा दिया.
बना
उन्होंने
दिया.
अमेरिकन यूज यू नो
हाइमार्स
attack
सब यूज करा
hunters,
वहां.
HIMARS, everything they used, but American army left. Same thing. Use your brain, and you have the thing. You have very potent firepower. You have experience. You know how to use this in high altitude. You know how to use this in low altitude. And you have a very experienced artillery. You can hammer the hell out of these chaps. Okay. You have a fantastic infantry. Let me tell you, our infantry is second to none. You have a great air force. Check by, we need to have that confidence that we will deliver, and I have confidence that our men will deliver.
सर
Our
हॉकी स्टिक से
officers will
पिटने के
deliver.
बाद तो रो रहे थे, आर्टिलरी से क्या होगा
Officers,
इनका.
yeah, our officers will deliver. Our generals will deliver. I have confidence. It's a different thing. On issues, I might have a difference of opinion with them.
Yeah, of
That's a
course.
different thing. They are democracy, and the difference of opinion, like they say, used to say, Tata's had, what's that? Dissent is the voice of progress.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the way I look at it. But otherwise, I have 100% confidence that we will deliver. Yeah.
Sir, normally you and I don't go beyond 1 hour, but I'm going to request you today. We need to take another 10 minutes because
Okay.
we've got a whole lot of questions, and I think
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
these guys are pretty interested in this show, so they're
Yeah.
wanting to ask. So why is Russia not using the BrahMos
Okay.
or any collaborative weapons with India?
No, they have their own. No, they have their own
It's
missiles.
called P-800.
They have whatever. I mean, the names, club, shab, जो भी है उनके पास है. We will not. They have their own versions. We will not. Yeah.
Interesting and but funny comments. Nice to see General is a fan of
Ah.
Daffy Duck.
Yeah, this one. I have my morning coffee with this. It's morning time where I am.
Okay, ask General Shankar, with increasing range and sophistication of artillery, is the risk of ECM enemy hacking increasing, and what point would it grow to be unmanageable in your view?
See, ECM and hacking again will play its part. There's no doubt, provided you transmit. Okay, but if you go online, your networks are underground. Nothing happens. Isolated networks. You have dedicated networks. There are methods. It's not as if. In any case, look. Let me give you a classic example. Falklands War. Falklands happened probably much before all of you, many of you were born also. I was a young officer. We used to study Falklands War in detail. Uh, at that point of time when Falklands happened, the British Army was one of the armies which had integrated and their firepower systems. They had got rid of the old charts and artillery boards and all that. They had gone electronic completely, uh, firepower. When they landed up in Port Stanley and all that in Falklands, they found that they didn't have energy, they didn't have electricity, they didn't have networks, they have nothing. So they had to go back in time and learn how to fire artillery the old way. Okay, and they had help, but they did it. They had no choice. What did it teach us? You can do what you want. Don't get rid of your old methods. Okay, we are
Make
still.
internet, make sure this is also there.
इंटरनेट ब्लैकआउट कल हो गया तो you mean to say we'll stop fighting? If the chap is getting on to ECM, the best ECCM is don't use it. Don't use electronics. Get back. You can't hack into a battery. You can't hack into a regimental network. It's impossible. And how many will you hack in? Okay, everyone is operating on different frequencies. So there's a limit to ECM and hacking and all. These are all high sounding words, low effect options. Yeah.
It was clearly seen in Ukraine, sir.
Yeah, yeah. There's no doubt.
Do we have enough stockpile for a two-front
Yes,
war?
we have. The short answer is yes. Firstly, we don't have a
Request.
two. Everyone wants to say two front war, four front war, 10 front war. We have only one front war. Let's be very clear. We shouldn't hype what we are going against. You think Pakistan will ever be a friend hereafter? If we have to prepare for Pakistan being a friend, so forget yeah, we are out of the equation. Yeah, let's be focused.
I think the
Pakistan has
army based in Punjab and Rajasthan can nipto them.
Pakistan as a front is over. They have their own front. They have their own artillery. They have to deal against called Imran Khan. Let them ready handle it. वो तो यार वो देखो if I were anyone in India na I'll support Imran Khan 100%. He is doing for us what none of us could do.
तो उसको
And
बोलते हैं precision fire.
he'll ensure one man army. He'll ensure that Pakistan is on the back foot for the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no one front, two front war and all that. Those days are gone. चलो आगे बोलो.
The true next step for artillery would be smart shells program to burst EMP in a limited zone. If we figure
Look,
out that,
all these are fancy things. Smart artillery is between the brains. Okay. In fact, I have written an article on smart artillery. What is smartness involved? They're complicated items. The more you get into this technological complications in battle, the more they'll fail, and the more they're costly. You cannot afford it. The battlefield can absorb only that much technology. More than that, it will fail. That is the lesson of the Falkland War. Okay, so you have to be very clear that beyond a point, the battlefield is not capable of taking technology in.
Indeed.
Okay, all these things, fancy things like EMP, CMP, and all will not work. You might have one odd EMP strike. So what if? So what if? Okay, yeah,
So this one question we will cover probably in the next episode.
yeah, we'll
Thanks,
do
Yash,
that.
for this very interesting question. Types of shells. We could get it in some details about what they are
Look,
and all that
let
stuff.
me tackle it. You can use artillery for high explosives. You can use it against armor. You can use it against. You can use chemical weapons. Shells are there. It was used extensively in the Iran-Iraq war, supplied by
Uh,
the British. The British, all these Western countries. Okay, you can use it for signaling. You can use it for illuminating. With there are illumination cells which light up the night. You can use it for propaganda. You can use it. You can have nuclear tipped artillery. So there are a lot of things. The number of shells are huge. Open any book on artillery and ammunition, you'll get that many out. But still, so it's too technical. I don't want to go into it, right? Because we'll we can when we discuss it at the right time. Okay.
so why we still use 105 mm when we have 155 mm lightweight artillery available, and also why we have less self-propelled artillery compared to the convention one. We have only 100 K9 Vajras.
The 105
So,
and is a very
may I, if you don't mind, sir, there is a notion that self-propelled artillery is better than towed artillery in
no
some
no.
ways. So we busted
Look,
that last time.
last time also we discussed this.
Hmm.
You have self-propelled artillery wheeled, you have self-propelled artillery tracked, you have the normal artillery towed, the light artillery which is towed, then you have the attacks kind which is really heavy artillery. Okay, you have a whole lot of artillery which you can choose from. It depends on your terrain, depends on your task, where what a gun like M777 can do, the K9 self-propelled can't do. What this K9 can do, the M777 can't do. Both are artillery, both are 155. Okay, both have a range. So they are, you just cannot compare. You have to have a mix of all, and that mix is predicated on the terrain in which you fight and your operational concepts. It's a huge mix. It's not a one plus one is equal to two. In this, you have to make one plus one is equal to 11. Okay. So the difference is again in thinking.
In thinking. So,
Okay. So we'll leave that. What is the first part of that question? Uh, I,
why are we still using?
yeah,
Why are
one
we
of
still
five.
using 105?
Yeah. You everywhere one of 155s don't work everywhere. Let me be also this thing. The advantage of 105 guns is that they are light. They can be taken up front. Okay. Handling ammunition is light. It's easier. You can undersling them or even take them in choppers. They're less costly. They're indigenous. See, there are so many things, and they have their safety distances are less. You can get closer to them for firing. 155 has a safety distance of 350 meters, whereas that has just a safety distance of 250 meters, 100 meters closer. Right. So you have to have a mix of everything. There is now one again.
System
Wahi hai,
which is
punch, different fingers, different
वहीं पे फंस
sizes.
जाता है आगे.
Yeah, you need a mix of everything, balance of everything.
So
Yeah,
I'll put this one comment and a last question after that. इज्जतो
yeah,
इकबाल
yeah.
जय हिंद.
No, you forgot. Izzato Iqbal Jai Hind nahi hai. Sarvatra Izzato Iqbal. Hey, look,
Uh,
look. I'm going to ask a question to the government of India here.
hmm.
Our national security advisor came out and said, we are not indigenized. Bhaiya, Indian artillery has had this motto of Sarvatra Izzato Iqbal since independence. So our battle cry and our battle motto, everything is indigenous
Our own.
from 1947. And I'm referring to the time in context where he spoke of Agniveer, we are indigenizing, we are having colonial traditions. There's nothing colonial about the regiment of artillery. The only thing, uh, The only main thing about the regiment of artillery, India, Indian artillery, is that it is 100% indigenous. We are neither. There was a time we used to be a British artillery, British-based artillery. Then we morphed
Yeah.
into a Russian-based artillery. Today we are a indigenous artillery. If there is a example of Atmanirbharta and what shall I say? How do I say? Nationalistic kind of artillery. What do you call it? It is artillery, Indian artillery. We produce our own shells, we produce our own guns, we have our own concepts, we have our own naras. इज्जत और इकबाल, सर्वत्र इज्जत और इकबाल के साथ. There is no other arm or service which can match us. And there's an open challenge. I'll give it. I'm so proud of it. Yeah. And it's my good fortune that I could head such an arm. I mean, I have to thank God for it.
I think you spoke about the Swati radar last time. So
Yeah,
they
yeah, it
can
can
also
track drones.
track drones.
Drones are simple to track.
I think guys want that. एक वो ड्रोन से थोड़ा satisfaction मिल जाए तो हाँ ठीक है यार अपनी आर्मी फिट है उसके पास.
It can track a shell which is going at Mach 1. Why won't it track a drone which is going at Mach 0.002 or something like that?
Guys, see, please understand one. There are two, three things I take from Jaran Shankar's talk. One, as novices of warfare, all of us kind of miss out one big thing, which is terrain. Where is the battle actually happening? And we forget to take that into consideration into most of our analysis of weapons. Uh, the Indian terrain of battle is completely different from what you see in Ukraine today. Especially the area of Kherson, which where the Russians are just, it's flat. I mean, there's nothing. There's barely some trees and this and that. These are all farmland, so it's flat steppe terrain. You can probably see the formation sitting 10 kilometers away from you. Simple binocular. That's one answer. The second one that you've taught us is drones. Yes, there are threats, but they're just a new toy on the block. So there's going to be, of course, some damage, but then something else
You
will
spoke
come.
of terrain. I'll speak of something else, which
So,
people have to understand. And look, I'm very clear. India has one front, that is China. How to deal with the Chinese threat. The Sino-Indian border, on the Indian side is India. We are talking of defending Himachal Pradesh. We are talking of defending Sikkim. We are talking of defending Assam. We are talking of defending Arunachal Pradesh. These are our land. Our men come from these areas. Our men are in the army. We are defending our land. Very important. The Chinese are not doing that. The hand China is defending Tibet, with which he has no nata. उसका जन्मभूमि नहीं है ना कर्म भूमि है उसका. ठीक है. हमारा तो चाइना के साथ कहीं कहीं तो देवभूमि है. हम बोलते हैं ना देवभूमि. भाई इन द इंडियन आर्मी सोल्जर वो जीन जान लगा के लड़ेगा, which the Chinese chap will not do. That will be the difference.
absolutely. That's the biggest lessons from all the
Yeah,
American wars that have happened in history, sir.
yeah.
They're not fighting for their land, so they
They're
lose.
not
They
fighting for
pack
the
up
land.
and run.
We'll not lose. Look, much against what we all think. Again, part of influence operations. The Chinese know it.
Yeah.
That's why they backed off, and they're holding us off at Depsang and Demchok through political and diplomatic means. That's a different day.
Thank
One
you,
day
sir.
that'll also be ours. Yeah.
Last comment. Nice show on the artillery. General Saab at his best.
Oh, thank you, Ramandeep. Thanks a lot. You do a lot of retweets of my thing.
He's
And
also
yeah,
a Fauji kid, so
yeah, yeah. And I request all of you, when we discuss these things, please propagate what we say. Okay. More of us, many of us need to understand all this. Yeah.
these
Thank
are
you.
timeless episodes which will last because we've taken an example of the Russia-Ukraine war to make us take us go through the systems of firepower. Before I sign off, guys, like, subscribe, check the bell icon. If you guys can, please do contribute to the Dev Talks effort. You can do that by becoming a member, clicking thanks just below, or the UPI, which is passing below your screen right now. Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful episode. As promised to all of you, we will be back with a show on firepower in Kargil specifically and the use of artillery. Till that time, sir, Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Thank you.